So hello everybody, welcome to my corner. I'm gonna get going on my brown butter chocolate chip cookies. To all my blessies out there, I'm gonna give a shout out. As you can see here, I have my dry ingredients mixed here, my flour, my baking soda, my salt, and also a little cornstarch. And here, my sugars. It's a trifecta. I have my white sugar, light brown sugar, and dark brown sugar, or the chocolate sugar as my niece likes to call it. I like to use a mixture of the three for the sugars, and I kind of fell into this simply because one day I was making cookies the first time I tried the recipe, and I did not have any light brown, so I tried it with the dark brown, and they came out just the same. They were just as good. So it's up to you, whatever you like, do what works for you. You can try a combination of things and then test them out. And now I'm going to begin the process of browning my butter. And so I've got my sticks of butter in the pot here. I'm not brand loyal, so whatever brands you like to use, whichever ones work for you, go ahead and do so. But to give you the measurements on my brown sugar, this is a full recipe, so that was 2 sticks of butter, as you can see. And in here, this is half a cup of white brown sugar. And since the recipe calls for half a cup of white sugar, and since the recipe called for a whole cup of light brown sugar, I just split it. So it's half of the light, half of the dark, and a half of the white. And in here, 2 cups of flour, teaspoon of baking soda, teaspoon of salt, maybe a little less than a teaspoon of both the baking soda and salt, and then also a tablespoon of the cornstarch. And I did stir these ingredients together because there's nothing worse than having a cookie that tastes salty or like baking soda. So make sure you give it a good stir. And then my butter is melting. If you want, I took mine straight out of the refrigerator. And it's up to you. You can have it softened. You can have it not softened. Whatever works for you. As you can see, that's getting a nice melt on it here. And it's starting to sizzle, so I'm just going to pay attention to this. And I have my spatula here and let that get going. And then we'll be back. You hear that sizzle going on in there? Just going to get my hand on, give it a little swirl here. And just pay attention to it, just so you don't burn it, or you can get it the way you like it. Typically, let it get a little frothy there, get the little bubbles going. Let those sticks melt down. And yeah, we'll be back. We're cooking now. Let this go. And it's doing what it needs to do right here in this little pot. I have the wrong utensil. Let me get the right one. Give that a stir. And of course, for all you real bakers out there, which I don't think that's me. I just like a good cookie recipe. High quality ingredients makes a big difference in the product that, in your baked goods. So it's up to you, whatever you use, whatever works for you. Like I said, go ahead and work with that. Let it start to get that little froth on there. It's bubbling. It's a bubbling. It's a bubbling. It's a bubbling in my soul. It's a bubbling. It's a bubbling. It's a bubbling in my soul. Alrighty. And this is probably one of the easier recipes of cookies that I've ever made in my life. Usually, takes a little bit of time, but once I found this one, I have stayed with it because it works for me. Alrighty, that's nice and foamy and frothy. We're going to wait for a little bit of those brown flecks to jump on up here in this pot, in this foam. And then we're just going to turn this eye off and make sure nothing's coagulating down there at the bottom of my pot here. And just make sure you pay attention to that, because you don't want to over brown it. And as you can see, with my 2 sticks, I have a smaller pot. You can certainly use a bigger pot just to make sure you don't get any boil over, but I can see those brown flecks coming up in there. I don't know if you can, right about in there. Now I'm going to turn this off and take this off this eye and let it cool down for just a few moments, and we'll be right back. Alrighty. And then next I'm going to add my eggs and vanilla. And I will base recipe and use it for a white chocolate macadamia nut cookie as well. And that is delicious, okay? That one is just as good. So if you prefer the white chocolate macadamia, you can go with that. If you're like a chocolate semi-sweet or milk chocolate, you can go with that. And I think that's in there. That looks pretty good. All right. So now we're going to add our dry ingredients. Some people like that a little bit at a time, but I just put it all in there so I can just be done with it. And then also the chocolate chips. We'll get those open, and if you like nuts, you can add those. For me, nuts are, I can do pecans or walnuts. My preference would be the pecans. However, since I am going to give these away, I'm not going to put nuts in them just because, you know, the nut allergy. And I'm not measuring my chocolate chips. It's up to you. Like, sometimes the recipe will call for a certain amount. If you like chocolate, and just go ahead and put those in there the way you like them, or as many as you like, as little as you like. Some people, they don't like chocolate, and they just want the cookie, so they don't add anything. I'm going to get this all mixed in. And this is a dough that does have to be refrigerated, just so the cookies don't spread too much. But usually an hour, at the very least an hour should do it. I've left it in the refrigerator overnight. And then I've even frozen the dough before when I had to make large quantities. So yeah, it freezes and it does do well overnight. Just gonna make sure I get all of this off the side of the bowl there. Make sure all my dry ingredients are mixed in there and that there's not anything left hanging out on the spoon. Because you know, sometimes that does happen. Just want to make sure that my spoon looks good. And we should be good to go. That looks like it's plenty enough chocolate chips for me. I'm going to separate some of this because, like I said, I want to put some walnuts in mine. Only walnuts because that's what I have on hand. Typically, I'll go with pecans, but hey, walnuts work just as well. So I'm going to get mine separated out. I'll put this in the fridge, and we will come back and we have a finished product. Okay, guys, so my dough has been in the refrigerator for just about an hour. My oven is preheating and it will be ready in just a couple of minutes here, maybe less than that. So while that's heating up, I went ahead and took my cookie scoop, which I just actually recently purchased, and I like it for this dough. Another batch of cookies I made, the dough was a little bit thicker, it had oatmeal in it, and so the scoop was a little bit harder. Once the dough chilled, it was harder to use the scoop, but a regular tablespoon or teaspoon works just as fine. Works just as well, works just as well. But if you look over here at my cookie sheet, it's lined with parchment paper. You don't necessarily have to use the parchment paper. It just makes cleanup a little bit easier on the back side. So I went ahead and scooped out an ample amount because I like a generous cookie, okay? And then once I scooped it on the cookie sheet here, I went ahead and just kind of pressed it just a little bit in the middle. Again, I didn't put a whole 12 cookies on this tray. You know, there's probably about 7 or 8 cookies per baking sheet, just because it'll give them some room to kind of spread and expand while they're baking. But as far as your cook time goes, you can cook them as long as you, oh, that's my oven. We're just about ready to put them in here. You can cook them to whatever desired doneness that you like. I like mine a little bit more chewy and gooey, so I tend to watch them. If you want a more crispy cookie, you can leave it there certainly a little bit longer, but it's up to you. You know, you can play around with it, try it out and see which one works best for you, and then go from there. I'm going to get these in the oven probably, I don't know, anywhere between 5 and 8 minutes, or maybe 7, 8 minutes or so, just depending on, again, like I said, the doneness. And I do apologize for all that scraping and stirring in my video earlier, mixing up that cookie batter, but you know, first time video, so we'll make some adjustments as we go along. We'll get these in and we'll come back when they're done. Alrighty guys, so my cookies are out of the oven, and like I said, I like a slightly chewier cookie. So you can see around the edges where these are browned. The center, once these cool off, should be nice and chewy. If you like them that way, I may put these back in there for just a couple more minutes. I don't think they're quite done enough, so they'll go back in. But then they're gonna cool, and then once they're cool, we'll come back and we'll sample some of these before we get ready to get them packaged up. And yeah, I'm a little bit excited about this. Okay, so I will check back in a few more minutes. This batch, and as always,